Ready to go?
Yes, we are live. Yes, we have started.
Good
Oh,
evening,
perfect.
ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the monthly webinar series of Destination Heritages platform. So, on this International Museum Day, coordinated by the International Council of Museums, the celebration is to raise awareness that museums are an important cultural exchange, enriching cultures among the communities. The theme this year is the future of museums in a rapidly changing community. What makes a museum? Is it only the space, the artifacts, or the information, which in many cases is inadequate, or outreach programs? That is, how are they connected to the communities, especially to the young? It is the latter part that Dr. Sumitra Sundar will explore in relation to art museums, how inclusive outreach programs for children and the youth will benefit them, as also making art accessible and relevant to diverse communities is the main thrust of our talk today, which is making museums matter, accessibility and outreach for children and youth. So I now request Manali to introduce our speaker of the day.
Thank you so much, ma'am. Wishing you all a very happy International Museum Day once again. And on behalf of the Destination Heritage, I welcome you all once again. Now it's my pleasure to introduce our speaker for this evening session, organized by Destination Heritage. We are joined by Sumitra, a Bangalore based researcher and curator with over 12 years of experience working across festivals, exhibitions, art education, and public engagements. Known for an unconventional and dynamic career path, Sumitra has successfully led complex initiatives in the field of art, culture, and learning throughout India. From shaping community driven exhibitions with the Azim Premji Foundation to co curating student commissions for the Kochi Biennial Foundation, Sumitra brings deep experience in making art accessible and participatory. As a former visiting faculty at the Bangalore School of Visual Arts, Sumitra has also designed educational programs that cultivate critical appreciation of art alongside curatorial practice.
Sumitra has also
So
designed
sorry.
educational programs that cultivate.
Yeah. Alongside curatorial practice, Sumitra writes extensively on contemporary Indian art. Please join me in welcoming today's resource person as we explore the vital theme of making museums matter, accessibility and outreach for children and youth. Over to you, Sumitra. Just a second, let me unmute you.
Oh,
Yes, good to go.
hi. Thank you, Geeta. Thank you, Destination Heritage and Manali. Today we will be talking about museums, accessibility, and outreach programs for children and youth in museums. I spent the past week or so thinking about this ever since Geeta called me and said, okay, like, can you do this lecture? So I've made some notes which I will be reading from, but I'm also going to be like sort of talking about the issues. I will also be asking questions in between, which will also be marked on the slides, which we can probably engage with later on in the presentation. While there are many programs and initiatives by museums across India that focus on children and young people, there is also a lack of interest in being in a museum as a choice for leisure. The latter part is a larger problem which perhaps needs longer discussion, but keeping the focus on younger people can help us look at what could be affecting the popularity of such initiatives. We will also get into what it means to provide access. Why are museums seen as formidable and not inclusive spaces? I always, as a child, as a teenager, as a college student, also loved going to museums, but none of my colleagues were of the same opinion. So I'm an odd one out here. Can we have the next slide, please? Yeah. So, what is a museum outreach program? Some of you would be familiar with what it looks like, but the simple definition is an initiative taken by the museum to make its collection more accessible. It's an initiative to supplement knowledge about a history, a culture, or even an aspect of science. So the supplementary aspect is what we need to really look at, because the museum is a standalone institution, but it contains knowledge that needs to be disseminated, that supports existing educational curricula, educational systems that are prevalent. Museums are not standalone institutions, and a successful museum can be identified by the range and the popularity of its activities. It also becomes a hub for building community and sharing knowledge. Now, sharing knowledge is something that is very key to any museum's mission, because without the intent of sharing knowledge, you cannot say, okay, we have a museum, everybody should come in. The intent is what we will also try to discuss in the coming few slides and questions. So can we have the next one? Yeah, this is access as defined in museum parlance. So everybody needs access to the museum. You have to have I put up a definition that I wrote just recently. Next slide, please. So as I said earlier, we already have dedicated museum outreach programs by institutional spaces. So some of the exhibitions, or some of the examples that I'm going to give are the Bhavdaji Lad Museum and the Vishwesvaraya Industrial and Technological Museum in Bangalore. We'll first get into Bhavdaji Lad, which is on the next slide. Bhavdaji Lad's Mumbai City Museum basically began as a collection of decorative art. But now it has multiple programs that talk about Mumbai city as heritage, Mumbai as a urban nexus. Through workshops and guided tours, the museum uses the collection, hires docents to speak about a variety of subjects, including the history of Bombay. Sorry, I keep switching between Bombay and Mumbai because I'm used to saying Bombay. I'm not sure if some people might take offense to that. This is something that many museums can do, speak about the urban history and draw in the audience. Now, if the space is in a central location, like even the Vishwesvaraya Museum, which is on the next slide, it's been something that it has a collection of scientific objects. Next slide, please. Maybe the video is paused. Okay, so Vishwesvaraya Industrial and Technological Museum in Bangalore has been a space that has been around for ages, and every 5 or 6 years, I keep seeing them re-look at themselves as a museum space. So it began as an initiative that had school students coming in and doing these fun projects and understanding what physics is, understanding what astrophysics is. But now I see that it's dedicatedly moving towards actually organizing quizzes for college students and school students, organizing activities which have students coming in and making things. Now, when you go to a museum and you're able to make something and you're in that space, I think it also gives you a sense of, okay, this is a space that I can come and access and I can have fun in. Now, fun is the most important aspect of any kind of leisure activity, which unfortunately a lot of museums don't give out that, okay, it's a fun space to be. And the college that said, I so museum a historical artifact or a historical treasure. That is one thing. But if even if a museum has scientific objects, or if it has a collection of photographs, the collection is is seen by the public. And in the case of children, they were children and young students. They can actually make connections to the things that they see in their textbooks, right? So, in connection to that, as per the National Education Policy, the Ministry of Education aims to have an education system by 2040 that is second to none. That is the aim, and they encourage teachers to include museum visits as part of the curriculum. Now, the core mission of the National Education Policy is to transform India's education system into a more holistic, flexible, and student-centered approach. This includes prioritizing critical memorizing collection content in syllabi, saying, okay, this is available in this object can be seen in this space. Or let's go back to the example of a science museum. The Vishwesvaraya Museum has students are learning science, and especially if they don't have this kind of facilities in school to be able to see these things, they can come to the museum. So this also makes it a space for a broader audience, like say a kid who's going to a central government school which doesn't have the facilities a private school has. The kid can be part of this program which the museum is initiating along with the school, where they will be able to actually see these things and get inspired to perhaps, I don't know, become the next rocket scientist. I am always going to advocate that music yeah. So providing access to children and youth is important. Yes, the national education policy. So what is the problem? So why is it so difficult to, or why is it seeming like a new thing? Why does museum access and basically having children in a museum space become a difficult thing, or why is it so new? So there are some issues that I think, these are again my observations. So when it comes to holistic and flexible learning, where you have to move away from colonial methods of compartmentalized learning, like, okay, these are the subjects you will learn, these are the exams you'll pass, and this is the kind of system that you will follow. When you come into a museum space, you will have activities that have you look at objects, understand what they feel like, even sometimes, because many spaces are providing tactile objects that one can hold. So, and then there is skill development. Yeah. Just one moment. Yeah, so instilling the importance of vocational skills, providing the option for learners to understand what they can do and what they can be good at to pursue as adults. This also supports the fundamental right to livelihood. Now, this is something that I was thinking about also, because like if students in schools are learning from textbooks that are prescribed by some nodal agency, what are they actually learning that will help them be able to earn a livelihood? And this is a fundamental right. And therefore museums as community spaces can become this, is what is something that I have imagined for the longest time, and I've seen happen in a lot of museums uh, across in smaller age areas. Also, I was part of this very interesting seminar recently in India only. This organization is basically putting together museums in rural areas, and how small community museums are actually sort of bringing community in to talk about uh, traditions, local crafts, and how to make them, what is important to them, and showing them that a museum space is not necessarily some formal building which has like objects and nobody can go in and disturb anything. So we will also now get into why is it that museums are seen as so what is the problem. Even today, like I won't actively say that okay, let's go to the museum for a fun evening. Ask anyone who might be making plans for an evening out. They will want to go to a mall, or even if you're not open after 5 p.m. The inner layouts of most museums do not accommodate diverse audiences. Now, this is a real problem. As someone who experiences overstimulation as myself, I find yes, there are benches to sit down, but how are you going to process this information? Then there is the aspect of children and youth who will not feel comfortable in the prescribed silence of the museum space. So every time you've gone to a museum, and discipline. Then museums distance themselves from the people by not providing the correct information. I think the slide number is a little wrong, but we're on slide number 11. Anyway, so the information about museum activities are not available on popular media channels like radio programs, TV commercials, or even regularly in the newspaper. When there are ads that are matter of fact and they're tucked away in a corner and printed in really small text, and this gets ignored. Even while in the museum, the kinds of information available are limited. There are pamphlets and printed materials on the walls, on labels. Perhaps newer and revamped museums even have like touchscreen panels. But the kind of information given is not for a young audience. It is not engaging in a very vibrant manner, which catches the eye and the imagination of the children. And also, then there is this huge problem where am I audible now?
Uh, yes, you're audible, but we are missing some parts of the audio. So I think if you could change the network or perhaps relog or something.
Okay, so should I leave and come? I'm not logged in as such.
Yeah, if you could exit and join back, I think that will work.
Okay, just give me a minute.
Sure, no problem.
Is this better?
Yes.
It's also raining here, so uh,
Yeah, here also. So I thought it was my side that we had the network issues, but I think it is on both the sides.
so I'm just going to try, and I don't have too much more to say. This is a
Okay.
few more minutes. So while we were at, I think we sort of got cut off in at the point where I'm talking about what are the various problems that one could face. Um, yeah. So then, like when it comes to going to a museum, also it is like if you're organizing a excursion, it falls on the teachers to sort of make it interesting and to take initiative to go to the museum, and then that is often clashes with what school curriculums allow, what your budgets are, and all of those technical things. Now, let's go into the next slide, which I will present what I feel is the some roadblocks in making effective and useful museum outreach, and they're as follows. The basic thing is a museum is an intimidating space, but apart from that, there is a lack of awareness. Many museum authorities and management are not familiar with how a museum's resources can be mapped onto the school and college curriculum. I think there is a real problem when people don't understand that there are collections, and the collections knowledge can be made relatable to what existing curriculums are, what children should be learning. And I'm going with the example of schools and school curriculum is because that is where most children are spending a large amount of their lives. I'm not going into attracting all kinds of children to the museum, because then that opens up a different debate about how accessible and elitist is a museum space. But when museums and schools need to function together, this is what one of the roadblocks is. Staffing and professional expertise. While there are multiple competent people in the museum, there are hardworking people, but are they all trained to interpret collections and actually engage with audiences? This is also a huge problem. Accessibility and inclusivity barriers. Museum buildings are often renovated and repurposed older spaces, and they have not accounted for disability access or even comforting interiors that would attract the public. Now, comforting in the sense not comfortable couches and like a relaxed ambience, but actually like inviting in the sense like making sure people know that they are invited and there are steps that can be taken. Then there is a big issue of funding and resource constraints. As always in South Asia, there is a large population and limited resources. Where a country's financial resources should be dedicated to healthcare and infrastructure, how can one prioritize education in the museum and therefore directing funding here? And overall literacy at a young age of importance of museum spaces as community centers will help, of course. So if there is a way to make museums, going to the museum as a part of your daily weekly school activities, I think that generation will start understanding the importance of a community space. And then there is obvious competition with other leisure activities. The biggest issue: can a museum outreach activity compete with the latest blockbuster film? Or an amusement park, or in urban centers, the entertainment options a mall might provide, right? So there are all of these things, and is it even possible for museums to offer popular entertainment for free on specific occasions or make a community focused event? Now, these are some things that I've had success with in even some of of the events that I have organized. Screen a popular film and make it in a public space. Now, museum spaces mostly are in public spaces. They can open up sections of their spaces to the public. So maybe children can watch like a popular movie in the museum, and the hours of the museum can be extended. So these are again some ideas that I've been having, and things that I'm happy to open this up to discussion. And even if people are interested in devising modules, that's something I'd be interested in. And yeah, so to conclude, I want to again thank Destination Heritage for this opportunity, and I want to emphasize that the connection between museums and education is a necessary priority. So, with that, we can open for questions. I know it was meant to be 45 minutes, but I think we can have Q&A for a little longer, Geeta.
Thank you, dear listeners, because we did have some disruptions and we lost part of her talk in the beginning of
Oh,
this session. So I hope the questions will make up for that. It was quite disruptions at many a time. Unfortunately, I don't know. It is raining everywhere, and
yes.
that has had an effect of what I don't know. But we missed a good part of your talk.
Oh
Anyway,
no,
yes,
I'm
in the
upset now.
beginning, especially in the beginning. In the
Uh,
beginning,
yes, there were disturbances, so we did not miss it entirely, but there were chunks of it missing, so it was not very cohesive at some point.
anyway, Dr. Sumitra has explicitly brought out the role of museums today as they are evolving, being in the forefront of change and navigating a dynamic landscape in tune with the evolving societal needs. Museums are reimagining their role as connectors and innovators of cultural identity. Sumitra, focusing on harnessing the interest of the youth, has stressed on effective outreach programs by way of interactive and participatory methods such as workshops, storytelling, and digital platforms to stimulate curiosity and creativity. Being an art historian and having worked in art museums, she has reiterated that the youth be engaged with art collections that aids in developing critical thinking, visual literacy, and a deeper understanding of India's deep cultural heritage tapestry. These programs also help to break down socio-economic barriers, ensuring that all children have the opportunity to experience and learn of their artistic heritage. So, the underlying understanding is that investing in museum outreach is an investment in the future, cultivating a generation that values, preserves, and contributes to India's vibrant artistic legacy. By fostering the inclusivity, museums can ensure that these and such vital programs benefit all children, regardless of their backgrounds or abilities. It's high time that museums engage with the young actively, as 10 years from now, it is their thoughts that will be a trajectory for where India is heading. So, thank you, Dr. Sumitra, once again for readily accepting our invitation and coming on to our platform on this International Museum Day. So, any
Thank you.
questions or any?
There are questions. I would like to read out the questions, ma'am. So thank you for the presentation. It was really interesting to note. And there's a question by Ajit Padmanabji. What are the budget outlays for technological development to accompany museums in India, including VR, AR, tactile 3D, for example, as against museums in the West? Do you see the situation changing?
I think my video is.
Yes, your video is frozen and we cannot hear you as well.
Oh.
Yeah, it seems to be working now again.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
No, it's frozen again.
You don't know really what I. What
Uh,
if I
I,
just
I
stop
think
the video?
you could just turn off the video. Perhaps the audio will work better.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Oh, fantastic. Okay, actually, this is a great point to start talking about this actually, because museum budgets are allocated, and if you look at a central government aided museum, there is a budget allocated for revitalizing and sort of repurposing the collection. And while it might seem like it's a very stodgy process, I've also seen museums return budgets. So the active participation of the museum staff in sort of like how much money has been allocated, what needs to be done. I think real conversations need to happen between people, and getting resource people in to sort of look at how to make audiovisual, augmented reality, and all this a very real possibility in the museum. So, sorry about that. So I see the change happening from within when museum authorities and workers can sort of actually understand where the budgets are coming from, and uh, using them in time. Because I remember at one point Venkatappa Art Gallery had to return like a bunch of few lakhs or something back to the government because they couldn't use it. So in that particular context, I think there is a communication gap between museum authorities and the governing bodies that give the money. Then again, there is also the possibility of like having public-private partnerships with like a CSR initiative where the money is a little more easy to administer. You can get like 20 lakhs to do some sort of technological upgrade to the museum. So in that particular context, I think the situation can change, but it needs like a back and forth between. And as with all relationships, communication is key. I hope that.
Thank you so much. I have a question. I'll put it on the
Yes.
screen. What would your dream outreach program look like if there were no resource constraints?
Oh, Manali, you're making me tempted. Huh. So I would basically have, I think I would dedicate the summer holidays of, when schools are off, and have festivals that, I don't know, show the latest, if not the latest, good animation movies for varied children audiences from across the world, and connect it to the museum's collection. Now we have like this selected, say it's a somewhat boring government art museum that is on this is same side as Museum of Art and Photography. Now there are a lot of hero stones, and there are a lot of like mythological subject in that museum, but your people are going to go to map because there is a because there's a touch screen to like play with. So maybe you can have like a museum evening where film is just screened in the outdoors when the weather is good. And I'm saying summer because then the kids will have something to come out to, like in the afternoon. I think using the festival model as something that runs for a month with things happening every day and workshops. So in an ideal situation, if I would have like a celebration of what it means to be in a museum, like film screenings is one thing, but also it's hands-on workshops, like how do you make something that look like the hero stone, paper mache, use materials, get craft teachers in, get artists to talk to a bunch of kids, and schedule it in such a way that it isn't overwhelming. It brings in a brightness to the space that, I mean, it's already in a beauty. I'm using the government museum as an example because it's in Kaban Park. It's in that central area. Like there's the science museum right next door. There is like central Bangalore happening right there. So in that context, I think I will use the festival model to do something like that.
Taking your adding to what you had to say, Sumitra, the footfalls in the weekend at the Visveshwara Museum is 33,000. But whereas at the government museum, it's only 10%, 3,300. So I think we can just make a beginning by taking each artifact. We have got some very beautiful artifacts in that museum. Make
Yeah.
it digitalized and let those artifacts speak to the youngsters, like it is talking about itself. Suppose if it is a hero stone, there is a Halimedi inscription. I think that Halimedi inscription should be made to talk to the youngsters there. I think if we make beginning like that, maybe the interest and curiosity people will, because Kaban Park is you find so much of footfalls, especially in the weekends. So I think people
Yes.
will be tempted. They want to see what is happening there. Oh, what is the the objects talking. Let us go and have a look. Maybe to start with, if we do something like that, and I don't think it might cost much. You can do one or two for a month and then do it. And also the in the art history section, the I mean the description and various other things are not at all very interesting or attractive for anybody to look deep into those art artifacts or into those art pieces. It's
Yeah,
unfortunate.
and it can be as simple as providing like a basic set of glasses which will help the viewer look at something, some extra information that is available on the artifact, which are without necessarily having to touch it. I mean, there are simpler ways, low tech ways of making information more accessible. So I mean, the government museum, we both know that probably one of the most boring spaces that are there in the city.
But
Not
unfortunately,
for
it
me.
is today run by young directors who are below, I mean, 45, 40.
That
So,
is that is interesting. I mean, one could also try to sort of have a seminar with them and kind of figure what the
yes.
problem is, right?
And I think there should be somebody to have a guided tour, at least on
Yeah.
particular days, particular times, rather than I find school children coming and simply running across the whole hall, and even the teachers don't explain. So I
No.
think
And how will they
the
also explain, right? Their expertise is not there.
yeah, so that's why the museum people should make an arrangement that once in a week somebody is there at one particular time to explain about the main artifacts in the museum.
Yeah.
So that is one way of wherein you can garner more footfalls and interest in people wanting to come and looking at this museum.
Thank you for the interesting.
And 1 minute. And opposite, you have the map, Museum of Art and Photography, and it is pulsating with so much of activity there. At least they could have, the government museum can take a leaf from there and try to redefine some aspects to make the government museum also interesting, because it has got a long history and even the artifacts are really very interesting.
Yeah.
Indeed, indeed. Uh, Thank you for the interesting discussion. So I would like to take up the next question by Mr. Sudeep. Are there low cost or resource friendly outreach strategies that smaller institutions or local museums can adopt effectively? I think some of that was discussed just now, but if you would
Yeah.
like to reiterate something.
I think low cost would also mean actually looking at the content of the museum and mapping it onto any learning outcome that you have. Like, for example, if a small NGO wants to talk about craft or a specific textile, and the museum has an object or a series of objects that pertains to that textile tradition, just a simple workshop where located in the museum and with an expert coming in from that particular tradition, the cost will be minimal. You'll have to probably pay the resource person, do some arrangement for getting the students to the venue, and print out some basic materials and have some stationery available. I've seen this happen on a wide scale. Like recently, I witnessed like a bunch of workshops led by artists where they brought simple materials like flowers collected from here and there to put on to make like a traditional piece of artwork and guided by the artist. So even when it comes to weaving, you can have scrap cloth and like talk about how weaving works. There are the thing about low cost is actually creatively thinking about how the content can be put across to the audience more than actually sort of having a template to follow and like cut and paste it across the spectrum. I hope this addresses what you were talking about. Maybe you can provide my email and people can contact me and we can talk further.
Ma'am, you're on mute.
Yeah, I think even some lectures, monthly lectures, maybe on some aspects related to the artifacts there, some areas. I think that can also be thought of to make it into there is no dearth of experts in any place. So I think they can also be called, involved, and make a monthly happening of these talks, workshops, then even on the desk, also that can be thought of.
Absolutely, ma'am. Uh, there is another question by Dr. Sneha Nagarkar. Can stories related to museum artifacts help in making the artifacts more appealing and engaging for the young museum visitors? Especially since storytelling is very popular with kids. So,
Yes,
what are
absolutely.
your
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, like stories is the way to connect, right? If you tell the students the narrative behind that thing, not just by saying, okay, this is a procession of horses that belong to this particular dynasty. You can talk about which dynasty it came from, what time, what that culture meant. Storytelling is the key way to approach.
And if you can see behind in that poster that we made behind Manali, that is a
Yes.
beautiful hero stone which is 10 feet by 7 feet, which is at the entrance of the government museum. So this tells the story of a war between the Ganga kings and Nolambas, and how it is very beautifully described. I think explaining about that itself can take about 40 minutes if you give the entire thing so beautifully. And on top, one fourth, I mean 1/10 of the space is there are inscriptions. So very rare to find such a and I'm told that this is one of the best in Asia. So why not we start something from this itself, and also to invite the young the scholars, students. They can also be this what to say, even games, the traditional board games, indoor and outdoor. So there are any number of resource person, if they can help, when they know that there is a gaming activity happening, children are also interested. So I think along with storytelling, we can also introduce this concept of games, and in this way you revive the ancient game, because now everybody is on their mobile and online games. So I think we can go back to our roots if we can also have some once in 15 days sessions on the outdoor indoor games, and also the old ancient outdoor games. I think that will be very
Yeah,
interesting.
it's like there's
Uh,
so many games that can be used as stories, right? Sorry, Manali, you were saying.
so I would like to add something here. I remember when I visited the Regional Science Center at Bhuj, Kutch, and
Yeah.
it was a very immersive experience for me because one of the interns working in the museum came along to guide through the various exhibitions, and they had some activities for the youth and for children that they could do. They could participate, like ma'am said about the games. So there were some things that we could do with our own hands and learn from it. And that story, that kind of an experience remains in our mind forever. So I think that's a wonderful idea that we can all, and it is quite cheap compared to AR and VR because those are more costlier options.
And also, I would like to say, when I went to the Australian Museum, so there was an folk artist from the Aboriginal tribe. He was sitting there and painting a child's face with the folk art, whatever those dots, those lines, explaining them. So this is a fun way of introducing the concept of folk art to the children, because they put it on their face. You find why a kangaroo jumps, why people are there, by way of dot. The dots have so much of significance in the Australian Aboriginal art. So I saw him sitting there and painting the faces, and lots of children in all these museums abroad. You find lots of children also having those interactive sessions, and then learning so many things, and then drawing. So many things are happening, which I think we can also introduce here. Think of introducing, because that is also all low cost.
Yes, and in Robert Brucefoot Sangankallu Archaeological Museum, Ballari, they also had this, they have stones, and the
Yeah.
children they can see how the instruments, the implements were made. For
That's so
example, a
cool.
hand axe. Yes.
Wow.
So they have those stones in different stages of preparation of this tool, and a child or a young learner can learn. what are the stages or what is the process of making a stone tool. We usually take it for granted. Maybe something happened like a million years ago, 10,000 years ago. It is not relevant, but we can exactly see how it affects us today, how our precision or our skills have improved because of that. So I think such things are wonderful.
Yeah.
Uh, yes,
Also low cost, hardly cost any money, and it is very easy to do.
exactly. So there is a question by Parvati Rajendranji. Hi, where and how do private museums like KNMA figure in this schematic? The access is free and they do have more visible outreach programs, but how successful or effective are they?
KNMA, one of my favorite subjects. Now I'll tell you. Now KNMA has plans to build big museums in Gurgaon area and like perhaps more visible areas. But currently the museum is stuck in a mall. People don't know where it is, and even if the outreach program was reaching people online and there was advertising and there's people know about it, getting to the museum is difficult. I don't see someone who's selling bhelpuri in the corner wanting to walk into the museum. Even if the museum wants the outreach to work that way, right? If they want people to come in, who are the people? People are the person who's sitting outside the museum, who's visiting the mall, who's perhaps even delivering food. Now, these egalitarian talk can be like, okay, everybody has access, but who really can access the museum? Do they know where to get in? Is there enough signage available for people to know? Okay, there is a museum collection in here that is actually free of cost, where you can go in and see some good art. Right now, Ghulam Mohammad Sheikh's retrospective exhibition is happening in KNMA, and that it almost never happens where a living artist is celebrated like that. I mean, you can see all his life's work there. I went in February. I got so overwhelmed. I needed to like have like take an hour break just to absorb all of that. But how do you get in? It's in a mall. It's in one of those posher the mall.
Uh, your audio is frozen, audio and video is frozen again.
Is this better?
Yeah, now it's
It's
working.
just I get very annoyed with private museums when they talk about access, but the spaces that they occupy are not accessible by everybody. And when I say real public, someone will be more willing to walk into a national museum on Janpath than come into the City Walk Mall, Saket little mall district thing that they've made there and say, okay, there is a public museum here. So I just feel like while they are actively endorsing outreach activities and while they are doing work, the access becomes a problem, and in that, the effectiveness of these outreach programs is nullified.
Can you just expand what KNMA stands for?
Kiran Nadar Museum of Art.
Okay. So it's in Mumbai?
No, it's in Delhi.
Delhi.
So, on a similar note, I had posted this question. How can museums ensure their outreach isn't tokenistic but truly inclusive of children across caste, class, language, ability, and gender spectrums? So, I
Delicious
think some of
question.
it was
Thank
already
you.
answered.
Yeah, it's necessary, but I honestly think that museums should not make them large scale huge efforts. I think they should start small. And when you talk about class and caste, you really have to talk about the students who are going to public school, Kendriya Vidyalaya, a small school in the Khidki village itself. Taking the example of that area, the KNMA is in Saket. It's in City Walk Mall, DLF, that mall area. Right opposite is Khidki Village, where the Khoj International Artists Association is. But Khidki Village is also a small, a very, I would say, less privileged community of people. And while Khoj has done some work to sort of engage the community there, active efforts needn't be huge photo shoot level things. It should be the earnest sort of small things you can build over the year, right? If you really are dedicatedly, if you're looking at getting into a community or having students from a wide range of backgrounds to come into the museum, you have to dedicatedly work in that community and then say, okay, we have a space there. Can a small group come in? Like, it can be small. It needn't be 100, 200 children. Footfall will automatically, organically grow if they see the space as something that they can go into.
Indeed, indeed. We have to make it accessible so that people, we have to make people feel that it is accessible. Yes.
Yes, yes,
True.
absolutely.
Because most of the
Uh,
time they get intimidated. They said it is so very highbrow and all that. I think that factor should be removed.
Absolutely. Uh, there is a question by Nagamani ji. Private museums in our country preserve valuable heritage. We may have to try to bring to public knowledge.
Yes,
I think
and the
that's more
onus
of an
observation, and also, yeah, the onus is on the private museum to communicate, right?
Absolutely. There is another comment by Divya ji. The schools and colleges can be asked to give project works on the museums by giving a chance for them to learn and understand its importance.
Yeah. My
So,
master's dissertation work was on Dakshin Chitra. And this is what I finished my master's in 2010, and I spent 3 months at Dakshin Chitra, like doing a report on them. So I think it's a very feasible thing to do.
I think the museums can invite scholars and the young researchers to come and do some research, and that way also make the museum known outside.
Yeah,
I would
Indian
like
Army
to,
has a museum program, right, where scholars are invited to be part to sort of engage with the collection and produce something. And IFA has been running this program for like a good 5, 6 years now, I think, and more even.
yes, I would again like to quote the example of Robert Brucefoot Sangankallu Archaeological Museum, Ballari. They also have their collections are open for researchers, and they have both those collections which are on display and those which are in reserve. And they are actually working, PhD scholars are working full time in the museum under the guidance of the experts who are there on various aspects of archaeology. So the museum itself is their institution where they are studying. So that
Yeah.
can be made possible. Uh, yes, these are all the questions. There is one another observation. Bhuj Tribal Museum is very exciting. So
It
that has
is.
been written here.
It is. It's very cool.
Yes, I have to visit that yet. So one last question from me. Uh, how do you approach the curation of content or programming when your primary audience is young people? And how is it different from curating for adults?
Okay, I'm just going to pause my video and I'll just speak.
Okay.
So something interesting that came up when I was working on Jaipur Art Week a couple of years ago was I was talking to some music professionals, and they said that the language that is used should be used for any communication material should be meant for a 14 or a 17-year-old. So it should be a simple language which allows someone of a wide range. So even if it's an adult who might not be well versed with large words, will be able to observe. Now, curatorially, I curate for I would say a younger audience because I want people to come in and be drawn into the work. So when I was at this show that I put up with my co-curator Jyotidas in Delhi, one of the central things was the viewership. Like, people from when they entered the space could see where the exhibition was going. So curatorially, I think if you're looking at a younger audience, you need to make it not colorful, but you need to draw the viewer in, and in that particular way, you need to understand the space. So when a space is a refurbished old building, how can you make the orientation work for you? Like older buildings have a natural way for like making people move in a certain way. So how can you use that to your advantage? So curating for a younger audience would mean a mix of providing clear small snippets of information, uh, aiding the display with colorful visuals, and also like maybe having dedicated activities that are more hands-on than just like than seeing a museum display. I think a combination of all of these things would definitely be the ideal way. Uh, that's my opinion.
Indeed. And I think this has already been done in a lot of places. But for the
Yeah.
more matured audiences, there could be something like a QR code that you can scan to get more information about that piece. Or there could
Yeah.
be a audio aid. So, and it can also be made inclusive for blind visitors if we have a braille this thing or an
Yes,
audio.
absolutely. And these things are not. They might be a little expensive to do, but they're not difficult to do. And if museum budgets allow it, then nothing like it.
I think there should be
Absolutely.
the concept of inclusivity, because we tend not to bring in the blind and other with other disabilities. There, it is very intimidating space for these people with these who are differently abled or whatever you can call them. So I find that something should be done to also bring them into the format.
Yes, making the museum infrastructure inclusive as well. So not only the concept or the exhibitions, but even the space should be inclusive.
Yes.
Sushila ji has written, how can museums be more accessible and inclusive and create awareness? I think it will be the summary of the entire lecture. So if you would like to reiterate.
So one important thing, accessibility just means understanding who all need to come into the museum. If someone who's on a wheelchair needs a ramp, someone who's hearing impaired needs to have a suitable environment. Someone who is maybe neurodivergent needs to have a say soft space, a quiet space within the museum where they can sit down and sort of like process what's happening. Every kind of person possibly who can come into the museum needs to be thought of. And if you are building a new space, actively think about making it public as possible. No, create wide open spaces where people can maybe just sit around and enjoy the ambience, and that will pull people into the space also, which is what happens in a lot of the heritage buildings in Jaipur, which I've seen recently. So there are spaces outside you can sit around, then you go in and you have a day of it, right? So in that particular context, I think accessibility is only by making sure everyone can come in.
Yes, and at the risk of sounding vain or trivial, I think museum spaces, the exteriors, if they are made more Instagram worthy, if youth can go there and snap pictures of themselves, that is more than any, it is better than any other incentive, I think.
I go to museums abroad and do Instagram. It's fine. It's not trivial at all. It's necessary.
Can you
Yes,
believe,
thank
Manali?
you for that.
Stockholm has got 87 museums. You name it. There's a museum for toilets, museum for all type of food. 87 museums in the city of Stockholm. And whenever I go, I cannot see more than four or five. That is the importance that they give for propagating their history, which is very small, but still these museums are so very inviting. They also have a outdoor nature museum, wherein how life was in say 300, 400 years back, and you have those characters, those ladies coming dressed up in those dresses, and then coming and selling you food or whatever there in their with a small bag on their across their hand, coming and selling it. You also see how bread was made. And similarly, there's another museum on only the Vasa, the ship that was made in such a grandiose way, but it did not go into the sea, and within I think hardly a few kilometers it sank. So after 333 years, they retrieved all the material because it is brackish water. So the wood did not disintegrate. They took it up and they made a museum only for this, the Vasa Museum for this ship. So I think there are ways wherein you can really make it very interesting, and they remain with you
And also, Instagram
as an
will
experience.
automatically you're reaching to your audience and you're saying that you're here. It's I mean, yes, it has become a bit of a joke in certain contexts, but I think using social media, TikTok, Instagram, and even your Facebook videos is important for accessibility.
Exactly. It should be used in a way that it reaches people for a good purpose. Definitely. Harpinder Ajmani ji has written, as an avid traveler very fond of museums, I have been impressed by the presence of a lot of school children at the museums in poor countries. We need to change the curriculum in schools. So that is his observation.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Curriculum needs to be mapped onto collections. That's the simplest way to go.
And surprisingly, Sumitra, when you go to Indonesia and other countries, the Muslim countries, there are school children and teachers taking them around the Hindu temples, and the children taking down notes very reverentially. They look at these monuments, try to understand, and I was really taken aback when I saw about 70 students from higher secondary school coming there and learning about the Indian temples, which was, they say that it is a part of our heritage. It was there,
Yes.
Purvajaru, it was there earlier. So we have to learn, and without any bias, they take down notes,
Manner of
and
respect.
such an interactive session it was.
Simple matter of respect. Accessibility is
Yes,
nothing but respect.
yes, yes, exactly, exactly.
Yes.
So, any more
Uh,
questions?
no, ma'am. That's all we have.
So, thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for patiently putting up with the disturbances in the in between. But then the amount of interaction, the questions, and the thirst for wanting to know more from Sumitra, that was really astonishing, and I'm really surprised. Though you spoke for say maybe 35, 40 minutes, equal number of time we had that many questions from the audience. Just goes to show that people are interested, if
Yes.
only it can be inviting. There is an audience for even these type of museums of all kinds, provided we know how to promote that. So thank you, ladies and gentlemen, once again for participating in this interactive session and making it very, very interesting. That's why I always like youngsters coming onto the forum. So they bring with
Not so
new,
young also.
no, but whatever it is. So you bring new perspectives, which makes it more interesting, and that is how the India in the next 1 decade is going to be shaped. So we know that our youngsters are really doing great job, lots of commitment and dedication, and I think maybe in 10 years' time, the shape of things, especially of museums, will be something very interesting. So,
Thank
on
you for
that
making
note,
this
ladies
happen.
and gentlemen, we invite you next month for a talk on the Ramayana of the Tantric, because the Tantric Bengali literature, there is the Tantric Ramayana, which a young scholar again who has done a PhD on this will be giving us a talk. So, see you next month on a Sunday. Thank you so much. And thank you, Sumitra. Thank you, Manali.
Thank you for making
Thank
this
you.
happen.
Yes.
Yes, you,
Uh,
you
thank
made
you.
it
Thank you
happen.
for the beautiful session and for the very interesting discussion. Thank you so much for giving me the opportunity to introduce and to conduct the question answer session. Thank you so much.
Most
So,
welcome.
Namaskara and Shubharatri. Thank you.
Signing off here. See you all soon.
Yes,
Bye bye.
yes.
Bye.
Bye. Thank you.